Hello, everyone. Really pleasure to have you with us in this, I'll say, unique webinar through Kuwait chapter, ICF Kuwait chapter. And I'll say good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Uh, just some administrative information. This webinar will be 1 hour. And please, if you can, put your mics on mute so you can hear the great knowledge from the great coach. And you will receive the certificate by email. And within 1 day, you will see it, inshallah, in the YouTube. And it's really, really, really a pleasure to have Coach Caroline in this webinar. And she is a very experienced ICF MCC coach and EMCC credentialed supervisor. Caroline Beckett founded Jigsaw Coach in 2017, offering coaching, mentor coaching, supervision, and training service across many participants, continent, culture, context. So it is really a pleasure to have you, Caroline, with us to spread the knowledge of your great experience. You are my mentor, my coach, my supervisor. I have all the honor that I learned from you, and I encourage everyone to learn from you. The floor is yours.
Maliha is very kind. So it's my pleasure to be here, working with ICF Kuwait chapter, but also I can see some names here that I already recognise in the audience from various corners of the world. So welcome to everybody. And Maliha and I spoke about what would be a good topic for International Coaching Week. And for me, International Coaching Week is really about learning and growth, which is why I've chosen Competency 8 as our focus for today. So whether we're working towards our first credential, whether we're experienced PCC and MCC coaches, or whether we're just getting started with our ACC, Competency 8 is absolutely crucial for our client development, as well as for passing those performance evaluations. So for me, Competency 8 has two parts. The first thing that we need to do for Competency 8 is establish what has emerged or what has been learned or what has developed or what has come to light during the coaching conversation. And it might be that one coaching session, or it might be during the coaching relationship. So to really understand Competency 8, we first of all need to inquire around learning. Now, we need to be careful with that word because it won't resonate with all of our clients. So in whichever language we're coaching, we need to consider how we can make our language as coaches client friendly. So it might not be the word learning that you use. You might inquire around what insights have you had during our session today? Or what have you discovered? And we know from the PCC markers that we need to focus on both the what and the who. And so for Competency 8, the first thing we need to do is really hone in on the learning. And just because Competency 8 is our last competency in the ICF called competencies and bars and markers, that doesn't mean to say we just do it at the end of a coaching conversation. Really strong mastery in coaching brings in that learning, discovery, insight throughout the session. What are you learning about the situation here? What might you be learning about the goal that you set and how that might be shifting? What are you learning about yourself in this context? So they're the types of questions that we love to see when we're assessing recordings, not just at the end of the session, but also within the session. So that's something else that's very important for Competency 8. And only when we've established what has been learned or discovered or what new insights there are, can we then go on to consider, well, what do we now do with these insights? or this learning or these new discoveries. And that's where we move our client towards action. In whatever way that action might be. The action might be to reflect. The action might be to go away and do something. The action might be to seek out some additional support. Whatever that action might be, it's born of the learning that we've done within the coaching session. So let's recap. Competency 8 does not need to be just at the end of our coaching session. Competency 8 focuses twofold. Number one, on learning, or whichever vocabulary we choose to use. And number two, focuses on action. Now, the PCC markers are really helpful when we consider the action piece because they lay things out with such clarity. Who or what might support you in your action? What possible barriers might you come up against? In what ways might you need to build in some accountability around the action that you've chosen to take? So if we look at the PCC markers, we have real clarity around the types of things that we might inquire around in relation to action. Okay, so I'll open up the floor. Do we have any questions so far on anything that's been shared?
Not yet, coach.
I have a question.
I appreciate that. Maliha.
Yeah. Why you mentioned, Caroline, this is the closest to your heart, number 8?
Because ultimately, Maliha, what are we trying to do with our clients? We're trying to help them to grow. And Competency 8 is named Facilitate Client Growth. And so for me, it's at the heart of everything that we do as coaches. And when I listen to coaches starting out on their coaching journey, and when I'm mentoring around ACC style coaching, and when I assess on the level 1 program, I often feel that Competency 8 is rushed. It's at the end. So the important bits we've done, let's just talk about, okay, what are you going to do? Great. And then the call ends. When I look at mastery, when I look at MCC style coaching, the focus is more deeply on the growth, Maliha. So that's why we see it within the session, rather than just at the end of the session. So it's close to my heart because it really focuses on that word growth.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, in the chat, I have just popped a document. So it's just loading up. There we go. So it's a PDF document. There are a number of these available on my website. But for this document, I've just focused on Competency 8 itself. So let's take a look at, first of all, the ACC bars related to Competency 8. So I hope you can all see my screen okay. And we'll zoom down to Competency 8 for the ACC bars. So in this document, what I've done is I've tried to break down all of the information that ICF provides in the core competencies and the bars for ACC and MCC and the markers for PCC and the minimum skills requirements for ACC and MCC. So everything for Competency 8 is now in this handy document. If you want something like this for the other competencies, you can touch base with my website and they're free to download there. So the ACC bars asks, let's say, just 3 things, but 3 extremely important things of coaches at ACC level. And the first one, 8.1, demonstrates that the coach asks questions to support the client in translating awareness into action. So what exactly is awareness? Well, awareness is learning. So how do we translate learning into action unless we've established what the learning is? So there's another word that we can use. What new awareness is there here around this topic? What new awareness is there here around yourself here in this environment? What new awareness have you established here by having this conversation today? Yeah. And only when we establish that can we move into action. And honestly, in ACC recordings, I don't see that so often. Action, absolutely. Awareness, less often. So if you're an ACC coach looking for renewal, or a coach looking to go for their ACC, please keep this in mind, because if we train ourselves to do this at ACC level, it becomes part of who we are as coaches. And you'll see as we work through the PCC markers and MCC bars, that is there in all three areas. So first we figure out what the awareness is with our client and we facilitate that conversation, and then we design action. So that's 8.2, create or confirm specific action plans. And then for competency 8, we have, something which lots of people find tricky. Well, how do I support the client to close the session? And this is there for ACC, PCC, and MCC. And sometimes I hear things like, is that enough? Have we finished? Is there anything else? And yeah, that's okay. But really, to understand how we do this, we need to look at the word partnership. And for those that know the PCC markers well, you'll know that the word partner or partners or partnering comes up about 8 times, could be more in the PCC markers. And it's here at ACC level as well. So the challenge for us as coaches is how to authentically partner to close the session. And to think about competency 5, where there's full explicit partnership within the session and throughout the session, how can we extend that then into the way that we draw our sessions to a close? In an authentic way. That's the key. It's the authenticity that's so important. So that's ACC. And in the document, for those that would like to study somewhat further, I've broken down the key skills that ICF are evaluating for ACC level. We've got exploring learning about themselves, their situation. So we've got the what and the who there. How do we apply that learning? So that's action. How might we partner to design that action? How might we measure achievements that are steps towards the client's stated goals or outcomes? Now, that's an interesting one. At ECC and MCC, we expect coaches to review the goal. So when we started the session, you said you wanted to accomplish this. So where are we in that process? Or how far have we come in that process? And that's there in the key skills evaluated for ACC. So lots of important things to think about if you're preparing for your ACC application with ICF. And of course, because of human nature, we also, of course, because we are human, we want to know, well, what should we not do? So we've got, for each competency then, we have the bars or the markers, the skills evaluated, what it means to pass, and importantly, what might cause us to fail. And for ACC, for competency 8, it's when the coach does things like suggest or insist that the client takes a specific course of action. Well, I think it would be great if by next Wednesday you have done X, Y, and Z. That's not partnering, that's more mentoring. So that's something that we need to be aware of at ACC level. So we're not making suggestions, we're not suggesting ideas, we're not suggesting next steps. Something else which would stop you from passing at ACC, if you didn't try to identify or explore the client's learning and how that can be applied. So lots of coach training schools don't seem to mention this in great detail. So that's why if you go away with nothing else today, I would love you to go away with this idea of 2 steps for competency 8. Establish the learning, and then move on to what we're going to do with that learning. Okay, so that's ACC. For PCC, we have the markers. So we don't have the extra information for PCC around the key skills because they're in the markers, around what would fail. That's not provided by ICF for PCC. So I've given you everything that we have for PCC. Those that know the competencies well and the PCC markers well will notice that we have both the who and the what for competency 8. If somebody is only talking about transactional things, things that need to be done, then they're not likely to pass at PCC level. At PCC level, we need to be going much deeper into coaching the person rather than just the topics that they're bringing. And that's why the PCC markers include both the what and the who in competency 3, 5, 8, 7. No, sorry, in competencies 5, 7, and 8, we see both the what and the who. So that's really important for PCC. In a sense, this is your PCC marker checklist for competency 8, and ICF would expect to see most of those things included in a performance evaluation at PCC level. Might I draw your attention to this? We have the word learning, and we have the word learning, and we have the word learning. And that's how important it is to establish what has been learnt for competency 8. Okay, so now we move on to the scary MCC stuff. So it's interesting, the contrast. We have 9 markers at PCC, but we only have 3 bars at MCC. So that in itself is quite interesting. And here's what I usually say when I'm mentoring people for MCC level. I say that we assume that you already have, and I describe it as like the backbone. You already have the PCC markers and the backbone of what's required at competency 8. It's no accident that ICF requires people to pass at PCC level before they can move up to MCC. So if we already know those things around learning about self and situation and goal, if we already know that we're going to apply action and inquire around that, if we know that we're going to maybe explore barriers or support, accountability, we anticipate that some of those things will always be there at MCC level because we have that competency already. We don't leave it behind. We bring it with us to MCC level and we enhance it. But we have, if we think of PCC like this, it's quite tight. We know what we have to do. The markers are very clear. MCC, we can relax a little bit. So yes, we're bringing everything that we've learned at ACC and PCC level, but we're able to just relax a little bit more. And we have 3 MCC bars for competency 8. Coach checks in with the client on their progress, learnings, and insights in a natural and spontaneous way throughout the session. So not just at the end, but throughout the session. Now, Maliha and I spoke earlier, and she said, what do you think, Caroline? Do you think it's good for training schools to introduce this idea to even new coaches, or should we wait until they're more experienced and introduce this idea? Maliha and I have both had the same opinion. Why wait? Why limit the coaches that we're working with? So when I'm mentoring for ACC, I'll often say, what do you think about maybe inquiring about learning here instead of just at the end? Or in what way might you have inquired around learning or progress or insights or discoveries? You know, after 10 minutes, something seems to have shifted, something seems to have happened. Why wait? So it's there and it's written in black and white. And so I agree with Maliha totally. Don't limit yourself. Competency 8 can be used throughout the session. And for MCC style coaching, It needs to be evident throughout the session, not just at the end. So if I'm assessing an MCC recording and I hear one question 50 minutes into the session around learning about self, I think, oh, I'm not sure this is enough because it's only at the end. And what can we do with that now? So think about that as you're coaching. MCC 8.2, coach invites the client to sense and reflect on what they are learning about themselves. That's a really interesting word, sense, because it lends itself to intuition. It lends itself to somatic, the body. It's not just cognitive, it's deeper. And we know that MCC style coaching is more about depth of the person. And so when we use the word sense, it's not necessarily just linguistic. It could be many senses that are coming in when we inquire around that. And our job as MCC coaches is to think about how we ask those questions. Like, how do I ask about what they are sensing? What language can we as MCC coaches use to enable our clients to explore that in a way which is client-centered and not coach jargon? That's really important as we move into the MCC style coaching. And then 8.3, we move into action. Coach cultivates an environment for the client to intentionally apply their own learning. And there's the word learning again. And here, look, we have 1, 2, 3. We've got 3 learnings. So the word learning is in every one of those MCC bars for Competency 8. That is the key. That is how important it is. It's exciting. It's empowering. And Maliha asked at the beginning of the session, why is this one close to your heart? And my answer is because it's all about learning and growth and development and transformation and moving things forward and change. And in the world that we're living in at the moment with so much change and so much transition, the ability to reflect and to sense and to consider what we're learning is just so important. So once again, you have this document to look at. We've got the key skills evaluated for MCC style coaching. And then if we go a little bit further down, there we go, being a bit slow, we have what's required to pass and what might stop you from receiving that pass at an MCC performance evaluation. So I'm hoping that this information is going to help you really explore what's required for an ACC, a PCC, and an MCC performance evaluation and coaching style, not just about the exam, for coaches around the world. So there was quite a lot of information there, Maliha, for everybody. I think it would be great if we might open up the floor and see what questions we have from people around the world, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. Thank you so much. Great knowledge. Anyone have question, please open the mic and ask Caroline.
Or if you're a bit shy, pop it in the chat because not everybody likes to speak out. That's fine.
Why should ICF not share the pass and fail criteria? Only Caroline share. That's the great knowledge. That's the
well. I don't know. I don't work for ICF, but all I can do is provide you with the information that ICF have shared. If you were to complete the PCC marker training, then there is a 40-hour program that you can complete to see exactly what is required, but it's very dense. And the PCC markers are very clear and specific, and there are 9 of them. So if you work towards those, you should be fine.
There is a question from Monterey. How do we ensure that learning from insights lead to sustainable behavior change?
It's such a great question. And unfortunately, as coaches, we can only do some of the work. We facilitate the space for the client to design their actions and to reflect and to learn. And we support them along their journey of change. And it's not our role to ensure that they go away and do it. The onus, the focus is on the client making those decisions for themselves. And if a client comes and says, I didn't do anything that I promised, there's no, I would hate to make the client feel guilty. Who am I to judge? But what I might do is inquire, okay, so there are a few things going through my mind. One is, might we need to discuss the roadblocks, the things that got in the way, possibly? Might we need to reevaluate the actions that we design to make them more attainable and maybe break them down a little bit? Might we need to just revisit the goal? Might we need to talk about your determination or your willingness or the importance of this? Is it really important? And if it's not, what really is? So there's no guilt. No, clients won't come back if we make them feel guilty. We're there to support them. So if the change isn't happening, part of our role, certainly in MCC style coaching, is to offer that challenge that maybe clients aren't getting elsewhere, but to do it in a way which cultivates trust and safety. And to do that, we have to have a really good relationship with our client to be able to say those things that
Yeah, Andrea, I have a question. What key difference in skill or style, or what shift do coaches need to make to start their journey to MCC? What's the secret behind MCC?
people think that MCC is like this mysterious magic thing. If you look at my website, you'll see that there's a document which is just focused on MCC style coaching. It's free to download. It's there if you wish. Andrea said, yes, exactly, that magic thing. I think, and I can only talk anecdotally from my own experience, when I stepped into MCC, I stepped into courage and bravery and a level of confidence, which I definitely did not have before. One example, a very basic example, would be the confidence to hold the space. Because at ACC level, I am sure I filled the space because I wanted the client to ensure that they got value. But who am I to judge what value is? Value for the client might be actually just having space to explore and reflect and to process. So MCC is not magical and mysterious. The bars, the key skills, what's required to pass and fail, they're all available from ICF. The minimum skills requirements are on the ICF website. So they are there in black and white. They are the types of things that we need to do. And there is also that inner strength, that inner confidence. And a lot of that for me, and I can only speak for myself, came from listening to other coaches, observing coaching sessions, having a great mentor to really empower me and support me so that I felt more confident to make those next steps. Another thing that I definitely didn't do at ACC and definitely do at MCC is use self as instrument. So I bring more of myself into the coaching at MCC, which I think I was scared to do at ACC level because I thought, oh, well, would it be seen as mentoring? Am I guiding? What am I? No. But the key for Competency 7, when we share comments, insights, observations, is that we notice. And we only notice because we create space. And then we can share without attachment. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, I'm just offering. And then the key is the inquiry for Competency 7. So at PCC level, I don't think I did that enough. At MCC level, I think I do it all the time. And I think I'm able to do that because I put less pressure on myself to fill the silence and I just hold the space and magic happens in that space.
Dr. Muhammad asked, he have a ACC credential, and does it require specific mentoring training to mentor ACC, or if he got PCC, does it require credential or accreditation or training certification to mentor, or he can mentor?
So it's a very good question. So the technicalities are this. If you are an ACC coach, in order to mentor other ACC coaches, you need to have completed a full renewal cycle. So you need to have been an ACC coach for at least 3 years. And at that point, you can then mentor other ACC coaches. PCC is slightly different. I don't know why. I don't work for ICF, but this is the rule. As soon as you have passed your PCC, you are then able to mentor for ACC and PCC.
Without training.
And that's the key, Maliha. It's and I kind of describe it as the Wild West, because who knows how good that mentor coach is. Now, I work on the Coach Me program as one of the founding faculty, and we offer a 40-hour CCE program which trains people to be mentor coaches. And we get guest speakers coming in. We have coaches coming in to be mentored live so that we can debrief around the mentoring. We listen to multiple recordings so that we can work out how to provide written and verbal feedback. So that's one of the things that we do. ICF are now, as we speak, looking at, and Dr. Claire from the Coach Me faculty, Dr. Claire is on the panel. They are looking at credentialing for mentor coaches, and they're looking at credentialing for supervisors. So they are aware of the Wild West and the inconsistency, and they are looking at how to address that and create a credential for mentor coaches and supervisors. Right now, there is no requirement for that. If I was choosing a mentor coach, I would choose a mentor coach that had had some sort of training in how to be a mentor coach, because to coach and to mentor are two different skills. I would choose a mentor coach who has completed ICF mentor coach training, the ACC bars training, the PCC marker training, or the MCC bars training, depending on the level that you're looking at and what requirement you have for your credential journey. The third thing I would do is I would ask around in my network, who are good mentors that we know? Can I have their details? And there are mentors in multiple languages all around the world that are amazing mentor coaches. But just picking somebody from out there, that's tricky, because there's also an investment. It's not just an investment of time, it's an investment of money as well. And so we need to ensure that there is some quality there. So they would be my pieces of advice around mentor coaching, Mohammed. I hope that is helpful. There is no requirement for a credential. If I'm choosing a mentor coach, I go through that process of considering what requirements I have to ensure quality.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohammed. Yesterday I attended the webinar at MCC. He said, I said, what's after MCC? He said, I wish I started EMCC accreditation 5 years. Do you encourage Caroline doing it both EMCC accreditation also?
I am also EMCC. I'm a senior practitioner with EMCC as well as an EMCC credentialed supervisor. So I have gone down that route. I can't say whether that's beneficial for people or not. It depends on the scope of the work that they're doing. I find it helpful, and I found the competency framework of EMCC interesting because they merge together coaching and mentoring. So it is a different approach than ICF, which is pure coaching. So something to consider. And certainly, if you just want to do some professional development, you could download the competencies from the EMCC website and just take a look, from curiosity perspective, that's there.
Elizabeth has a question. I sense a tension between offering a perspective and allowing the client to have a choice. How do you balance offering perspective while allowing coaching to be client choice?
It's a great question, Elizabeth. And many years ago, in my first profession, I was an English teacher. I taught English all around the Gulf region, actually, and in the UK. To me, language is key. It's the language choices that we make when we offer those perspectives. So what I think I might be sensing is, what are your thoughts on that? May I offer an observation? It seems to me that there's a conflict between this and that. What are your thoughts around that possibility? There's no attachment on my part. I'm just offering. And the key, Elizabeth, is to inquire. So we choose our language carefully, and then we inquire around possibilities. I'm not attached. I'm very happy to be wrong. That's okay. Elizabeth.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. Sharon has a question. Holding the space, I appreciate that silence will do this. What else involved in holding the space?
Oh, that's a great question. What else is involved in holding the space? I'm holding the space right now. Holding the space is about reading the room. So yes, it might be in that silence that things happen and things emerge, but it might also be that we're noticing what's happening for the client. And if the client has sat back and is looking up, there is clearly something happening. So we are holding the space for them to process, to reflect, to consider, to construct. So one of the things we do is silence. Another thing is reading. Think Competency 6, reading the room, reading the body language, reading the movements. I think another thing we do when we hold the space is that we kind of offer what we're seeing. That's Competency 6, isn't it? So we're holding the space for people to feel comfortable. That would be Competency 4, cultivating trust and safety. When we hold the space, we're creating an environment, an atmosphere, a relationship, a partnership where people feel seen, heard, felt, and comfortable. So there's some of the things, Sharon, that come to mind straight away. And I noticed, Maliha, we veered off Competency 8, haven't we?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome,
Thank you
Sharon. I hope that helped.
Urso has a question. Hi, Caroline. I would like to your input on this client feedback I recently had, as it relates to me offering observation and reflection on even my opinion, as this is what the client wants. What helped in structuring the thought? What I liked less is only asking question. I don't need a coach that avoids giving their opinion and only follow up by glancing it back at me. I value other people's opinion and can still hold my own opinion next to that.
That's really interesting. And it's really interesting because I did a mentor coaching session and the coach brought this question to me. Like, what do I do? Yesterday, it was in a group mentor coaching session. What do I do when the client keeps asking me my opinions? And then when I don't want to give it, says, why do you keep asking me questions? It literally happened yesterday. So this is great. The advice that I gave that particular coach was multi-leveled. So firstly, are you clear in what you're offering? So in terms of the alliance and in terms of the explanation of what coaching is and is not, is there clarity? Verbally, when you build that alliance, contractually, in the contract that you ask them to sign, and also out there, LinkedIn, social media, etc. Are you clear about what it is that's on offer? Secondly, if we think of Competency 7, we are allowed to offer thoughts, comments, insight, ideas. And often ACC and PCC coaches are fearful of that because, and I know I was, hand on heart, vulnerability. I was fearful of that because I don't want to be accused of mentoring or consulting. I don't want to be opinionated. I don't know their context as well as they do. Who am I to say? And if that's what they're asking for, what do we need to do as coaches to ensure that we are following the pattern of notice, share, inquire? So, and I apologize if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Arusi, is that correct? I hope it is. Oh, good, good. Arusi, I would offer you a challenge if you're willing to accept. If that's what they're asking for, and if there is real clarity already around the alliance, or you might need to go back to that, then how can you, with language choices, phrase things so that they are possibilities rather than opinions? So what's coming up for me is X, Y, and Z, and I'm not attached to any of them. Where do you want us to go next? What are your thoughts on that? What other possibilities might there be? What might your team leader say? What might one of your stakeholders say? What might another coach say? So I tend, again, for me, it's language choices. I tend not to offer specific opinions. I tend to offer possibilities.
Yes, Ersu, please, if you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Caroline. Really helpful. I think to share context because of other coaches here, I think there's definitely something around clarity on the coachee side. And the way I'll explain it is it's a client that I have from my work as an associate coach. So it's within organizations. So they would have had their briefing of what coaching is. But obviously I have no control over what they understood. Yeah. And they've sort of rushed and they've come into the coaching session. This was actually session 2, and where this feedback came back to say, essentially, I'm not trying to give the game away and give my opinion. So maybe I take your point on clarity on what they thought coaching was and what has happened on that side and how they've come here. So I agree that that's definitely, me needing to recontract, establish the agreements with them again, so that we understand what my role in the partnership is. I did do some of what you shared about notice, care, inquire. I did it more in terms of, okay, I don't want to give my explicit opinion because, to be fair, I don't understand your world and your context, what you do. But where there were similarities, I said, what I've witnessed or understood some clients have considered in the past is 1, 2, 3. Which of those resonates with you in terms of your comfort level? What might be applicable in this situation? So I did it in that kind of way. And I think maybe that was a bit better in that session, but I read the feedback and was surprised by it. I can hold my own opinions next to it, but in conversation, to be kind to the client, they did say, you know what, I had someone considering some interior design. They gave me some option of things, but I knew what I liked as well. Is that not what coaching could be like, actually? So it's now coaching the person in front of me because that's the style that they wanted, but it was new to me. But yeah, I just thought I'd ask the question because it's something that's happened recently, so I wanted to share.
And that's a really valuable insight. So thank you very much. Is offering possibilities leading the client? Is offering possibilities leading the client? The first thing we need to do is inquire what they feel are the possibilities before we dive in. And then at the point where they say, what do you think? Then we might offer possibilities. But again, we need to ensure that we're not attached to any of those possibilities and we're not leading them in any particular direction. So we might put in a wild card possibility, something absolutely outlandishly ridiculous, so that they can discount that, but we have to be careful in the language that we use to ensure we're not leading. But offering is allowed in Competency 7, but we have to ensure that we always inquire after we notice and share. We've moved on to competency 7 instead of 8, Maliha here.
Yeah, by the way, linking, do you want to touch up on the link between competency 3 and 8? If we did 3 perfectly, it's very easy to do 8. Please.
And for competency 3, for MCC style coaching, I use the phrase linger. We have to linger around. We stay with competency 3 probably longer than we would at ACC. Because at ACC coaching, what I often see, not always, but often, is we've got the goal, we know what we're doing, let's dive into the coaching because that's where the value is. At MCC level, we do a lot more exploration around, so, you know, why is this resonating now in particular? You know, what is so important? And you know, if we were to design some sort of measures of success for today's conversation, what might they be? And why might we need them? And what impact is that going to have on this goal? And what impact might that have elsewhere? So we're not just looking at that one thing, we're looking more holistically at the person and their situation. Without a good 3, we don't get the scope to be able to dive into competency 8. Because what are we going to relate it to? Any other questions?
Any other question?
We have a question in the chat from Mukata. Sometimes I find myself guiding the client when I demonstrate competency 8. I know it has to be partnering, but this is what the client needs at that moment. Oh. So again, I look at language. This is what the client needs at that moment. Who
Yes,
says
Carolyn.
they need it?
Yeah,
Please.
it's me, Mukhtar.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Caroline. Sometimes, yes, I find myself with demonstrating competency 8, like it's gonna like a brainstorming. So the client needs to, you know, have this kind of you know, exchanging thoughts. And when we exchanging thoughts, you know, I take my space to offer more possibilities. Like when I ask him, what sources, more sources would you like to explore to help you to achieve your goal? So then I feel like, you know, I'm guiding the client, but this is what he needs. I know for the assessment, it's not, you know, preferable to go on this path.
So there are 2 words that you use, two verbs that you use. You said sometimes you offer, and then you use the word guide. Now they are 2 very different things. So I'm curious, are you offering or are you guiding?
Yeah, kind of offering more than guiding.
Okay, so if we're moving to offering territory, that would be more around competency 7. And when we offer, we then inquire. If we are guiding, if we are giving, if we are sharing opinions, if we are telling, that isn't coach-like behavior. So
Thank
I
you.
hope that's helped.
Yeah, I capture the attachment as well. So when the detached happened, it's what is you know, demonstrate offering, not guiding and leading. Yeah, thank you.
And again, depending on the language that we're coaching in, we need to consider how we phrase that so that we ensure it is the offer and not the guiding. And I admire everybody who can speak a second language. And for coaches that submit in English when their first language is not English, it's easy to choose the wrong verb, of course. And so it's just an awareness. If you feel, oh, you know, that could be problematic, think about the language that you're using and consider how you can best phrase that so it's an offer rather than an opinion or rather than giving something that somebody should do.
I have a question, Caroline.
Maliha, please.
seeing the coaching culture in Europe or USA spreading now, it's now the tool even for well-being. But you lived in the Middle East. How do you encourage that? What can we do to increase the awareness about the coaching culture, even in the organizations or the education, health sector? So the steps for in the Middle East much slower than the in Europe. What do you think we can do to?
Well, I think in the last 10 years, the strides in the GCC towards coach-like behaviour has been huge. So all credit to all of the ICF chapters in the Gulf region, because you've been doing some extremely worthwhile work and increased visibility just tenfold. So that's the first step, I think, to get the message out there. In a world where we are growing global citizens rather than just citizens of our own nation, I think exposure to how other people are working on this is really important. So I think that's a good step to see what are other people doing to develop coaching cultures and coach-like behavior in leadership and organizations.
Thank you. Vika has a question, please.
Hi,
Hello.
Carol, my question is about a metaphor, because I've heard a metaphor for the eighth competence, like, when the whole session is like a flight. So competence 3 is taking off. Then we use competence 4 for our client to feel safe, and we explore for the insights, etc., etc. And then eighth competency is like landing, where we take all of this and try to, put it into action and life, etc. So what do you think? What metaphor do you think about when you think about eighth competence?
I think the metaphor of an airplane is a really interesting one around, we're on the runway, we're establishing a goal. What is it? Let's decide our destination. Let's decide what we want when we get there. Let's decide how we know it's going to be a successful journey. And then we take off. We have to have trust and safety. We have to trust the pilot, because otherwise we don't want to get on the plane and we don't want to go on the journey. And then we've got all of that from up here looking down time while we're on the plane, looking out the window and being able to see things from different perspectives. And then competency 8 is, okay, so we've been on this journey together and we're getting ready to land. If we take the landing as the partnering to close, what do we need to do in terms of reflecting on action and learning in order to ensure we have a smooth landing? And Vika, the only problem with that metaphor is, as I said earlier, competency 8 shouldn't just be at the end. It needs to be within the session, especially for mastery. So we might have a slightly bumpy journey if we're doing that. But yeah, it's a great metaphor. And the coaching arc, of course, goes in that direction.
I thought that probably something about the luggage would be better. Checking out with your luggage at the end of the session, but checking with something you take, on the plane and put it on the
yeah.
shelf.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Thank you for that metaphor.
Caroline.
Thank you. Suha.
Suha, yeah. Suha,
Yes.
Shall we practice all competencies in a single session?
Okay, I think that's it's a great question, and it might be our last one for today, Maliha. Yes, is the simple answer. We can't have a coaching session without establishing a clear goal and measures for success or equivalent. We need trust and safety to enable that relationship to work. We have to partner and be curious with the coaching mindset and inquiry for competency 5. We need to be actively listening, not just to the words, but to everything that's happening in the session. We need to really deep dive with facilitating awareness, lots of inquiry for competency 7. And without that reflection on learning, growth, and next steps, then we're not going to be able to conclude our session. So I'm afraid, Suha, the simple answer is yes. Now, we might not include absolutely, if we were looking at the PCC markers, we might not include absolutely everything, but the vast majority would be there, and there would be something from each competency evident in a performance evaluation, for example.
Yeah.
One request, Coach Caroline. Many are asking for your webpage or website. If possible, can you share it on the chat box, please?
Sure, no problem. It's also in the document. Let me just put my
That you
website.
shared at the beginning of the session, yes.
Yeah, I can pop that in again, just in case people didn't access the chat when they first arrived on the call. So please give me a second, I'll pop that in there. There you go.
And we
I would
need
like
a group photo if all can open their mics, their cams and share a group photo.
I would like to thank you so much, Caroline. It was really a pleasure. We will need a promise from you, then another webinar.
Of course, Maliha, of course.
Inshallah. And let's take the picture now.
Yes. 1, 2, 5. Still opening cams. 1, 2. Yes. Yes. More to come. Great.
I'll also pop my LinkedIn in the chat should anybody wish to connect. And if you have any questions, of course, please just touch base with me. There are, as I said, some free resources for coaches on my website, if that might be helpful for anybody, for ACC, PCC and MCC. And the YouTube channel has some sample coaching demos and supervision demos and things like that, if that might be helpful to anybody as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Caroline. And thank you, everybody. And wish you a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been lovely to see everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.